One of the things this lesson talks about is something called an extraneous solution. An extraneous solution basically means it's an answer that you get when you solve the math, but when you try to substitute it, it doesn't actually work. So it doesn't work when you try to substitute it into the equation. So I'm going to briefly go through how they algebraically solve the problem, so step by step. First thing that they tell you to do is to square both sides. Squaring both sides is important because you have to get rid of the square root symbol. So I'm just going to put a little parentheses and a squared. So the square root symbol and the square cancel out. That leaves you with 2x plus 3. X to the second would have given you x to the second. Earlier we talked about when we were trying to solve equations that have an exponent of 2, we have to do some factoring in order to solve it. The issue is that our stuff is on different sides of the equation. So I'm actually going to take these two expressions. I want to keep my x squared. I want to keep that positive. I'm going to take these two. So I'm going to take my 2x. I'm going to take my 3. And I'm going to actually subtract them from both sides of my equation. That way, I have all of my stuff set up the way I need to set it up. Since there are no like terms, I'm just going to put minus 2x and minus 3 on the other side of the equation. So from here, I'm going to see what I get when I cancel everything out. So I'm going to, oops, sorry. So these two cancel each other out. These two cancel each other out. That leaves me with x squared minus 2x minus 3. So on the next slide, this is where I'm going to start doing my math. So if you recall diamond factoring, in this case, I am looking for two numbers that multiply to give me -3. They also are going to add to give me a -2. So that means I would have to do -3 and a +1 because, in fact, when I multiply those two things, I'm going to get -3. When I add those two things, I'm going to get -2. So let's type that in. Two numbers that multiply to give you -3, but add and gives you 2. So those are those two numbers right there off to the side. So once I have those two numbers, I'm going to put those into factored form. So next slide, factored form, because that's important. So with that said, my two numbers were -3 and -2, or -3 and +1. So I'm going to put x minus 3 in parentheses and x plus 1. So those are my two numbers, which then means my solutions are the two numbers that give me 0. So the only way the first one works is if I use a 3, because 3 minus 3 equals 0. And the second one, I would have to pick a -1, because -1 plus 1 equals 0. So the last thing I want to check for when I'm looking for extraneous is which one of those doesn't work. So if I rewrite my original equation, I can easily just put in my two numbers. So I'm going to 2 times 3 plus 3, making sure I still get 3. This is a square root, so this is square root of 6 plus 3 equals 3. The square root of 9 equals 3, and that is most definitely true, so that one worked. And the second one I want to check is what happens when I put in a -1. So I'm going to put square root of 2 times -1 plus 3 is equal to -1. I already can tell this isn't going to work because taking the square root does not give me a negative answer, but hey, let's do it anyway. -2 plus 3 is equal to -1. This would give me a +1, and this would give me a